What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Football Friday edition of Backyard Play with Q. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones. We are presented by our wonderful friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clemens Bridge Road in Deptford, New Jersey. Use sports equipment and more. By the way, new store. Congratulations to the gang over there in Mount Laurel. You can just check them out online. They are hiring as we speak. PlayItAgainSports.com/ you put in Mount Laurel for the location, and we're very pumped for that new store location. I love when I get in there, see some of the good merch, the free weights. They got all the golf equipment and more. And also the high school coaches that tune in. If you guys are looking for uniforms, you can also, again, they do embroidery. You can check them out online, playitagainsports.com/Deptford. And with that, the election is in the books. Thursday night football and the refereeing, which is piss poor, is in the books. Week 10 is kicked off in the NFL. And we welcome in our good friend, Professor Shine. What's going on, brother?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. I see you're still sporting. You're riding that Lions bandwagon all the way to the Super Bowl. Jared Goff, MVP. Here we go. Maybe Lamar Jackson has something to say about that. Who knows?
Uh, yeah, if the voting was right now for MVP, Jackson would win. But it's not. So he still has, few games remaining where he can look, not as good as he's looked so far. I mean, he basically looks unstoppable, but
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, they still have two more games against Pittsburgh. They didn't play Pittsburgh at all yet.
Pittsburgh's defense is solid. Yep.
But go back and look how he plays against Pittsburgh historically, against Tomlin's defense historically. He kind of looks, human instead of superhuman.
Pedestrian.
And the hope is if anybody that has Josh Allen MVP futures, or like I have Goff MVP futures, you kind of want Lamar. You're hoping for Lamar to have couple bad games mixed in with some okay games.
Yes.
And then the hope is that the voters will compare this season to last season, and they really don't want to give back to back unless the guys has improved or been unbelievable. But his stats are like, what is it, 24, like one interception or something. So it's pretty
24
it's pretty crazy. I have to think he's going to come back to earth
eventually
a little bit. Also, the Ravens have lost a couple close games. They won a close game, obviously, last night. I get the feeling that they're not going to go 14-3.
Well, here's their remaining: at Pitt, at the Chargers, and the Eagles at home, then a bye. Then they have the Giants.
And then after that,
Giants, Pitt, Houston, Cleveland. So I see right there at least 4 wins. They'll split with Pittsburgh.
Yep.
They'll beat the Giants. They'll beat Cleveland. If Houston's got an AFC slot wind up and Baltimore's playing for home field advantage, let's just say Kansas City trips up, I think they're better than Houston, even though they got to travel down there. Eagles, they can beat the Eagles. I mean, 10 wins, 11 wins is in the cards, but you're right. I don't see 12, 13, 14. No.
So let's say they slip up a little bit, and they get around 11, 12. And then now do the other side, if Detroit just keeps, right? I mean, if Detroit just keeps running,
Sure.
Beating everybody, and, let's say that they finish with 14 wins.
Right.
And there are people. Let's say that Detroit finishes with the most wins or tied with Kansas City. Everyone's they're going to have to look for Goff. Part of me is wishful thinking. I'm trying to find an avenue for Goff. It seemed more clear to me last year. I said, I had it way ahead of time. I said, if that Saturday, I think it was a Christmas Eve game, is that, if Goff can look real well on TV at Dallas and they can win the game. Yeah, that was the game that he did look good for, the second half. And they lost the game and that was kind of him went down the toilet. Because remember at the time, this time last year, everybody was kind of in the middle. Everybody was, it was Mahomes, it was having a good year, and nobody was separating themselves. And it turned out to be Lamar separated himself, and
Goff's
Goff.
going to have 4 or 5 game stretch where he's throwing 3, 4 touchdowns a game for 300 plus yards, and they're winning because
Maybe I do think if he just keeps, if he has, I mean, listen, he has. I tweeted it out. He has 30 straight completions at attempts to Amon St. Brown. So that's, I don't think I've ever even heard of a stat like that before. 30 for 30. He had 3 straight games where his quarterback rating was over 147 or something. I think that's only happened a handful of
here's
times.
his projection:
So
3,900 yards, 30 touchdowns, 9 picks, and a quarterback rating of $115, and the completion percentage would be 74%, which is unheard of.
So if he can just improve a little bit, so if he can go, over 4,000 yards and do 31 and 8.
Yeah, there you go.
Then if he's comparable and Lamar ends up doing 34 and 6 or 5 or something like that, and then they finish with 12 games. I just think the voters are going to look for a reason not to do Lamar, especially if they slip up like at the Chargers or at Houston.
Right.
The whole MVP might come down to him at Houston as an average game. That's kind of what you're hoping for. Now, the other monkey wrench into my bet is, Josh Allen, because Josh Allen, where would the Bills be without Josh Allen? So, you don't want him to have a game where, the game's close against Kansas City and he, throws 2 touchdowns and runs 40 yards for one. And, then they seal the deal late. There's a lot still that can happen. And what you don't want is you don't want to have a real stinker of a game.
It's crazy how quarterbacks fall out of place, though. Like, think about it. The first 2 months, we were talking about Sam Darnold. The first 5 or 6 weeks, right?
Yeah. If you watch as long as we have, that MVP is going to come from a team that he's got to win at least. In the old days it was at least 11 wins.
Okay.
Now it's got to be at least 12 wins.
Yeah.
And in a year where if nobody goes absolutely crazy, the guy's just really good. That's the guy that'll win. I mean, Mahomes has actually helped out my odds because, he hasn't played that great.
No,
but he hasn't really had to either. But so all that's good. And if you got preseason odds like me of some crazy numbers with Goff, you're really hoping at some point, if I see Lamar have a big game, I might actually play a little bit on Allen as well. There was 4-1 plus 380, things like that. Or I might just go down with the ship, because I do have futures with the Lions as well, which look a little bit better. The prices weren't as great, but here we are, what is it, 10, 11? I get confused with the bye weeks. We're mid-November, and Detroit to me is the best team. As good as Baltimore looked yesterday, and I think I sent you a tweet.
they're susceptible.
They're going to have a problem.
Yeah,
their defense is going to be a problem.
Yeah,
it's going to be a problem in a close game. I know they killed the Bills at home, but I know that has more to do with scheduling than anything else. A defense like that, they could go to Houston and lose.
Sure. Give up 35
points. Lose a game. Yeah, they could lose a 35-31 game, something like that. Even their kicker doesn't even look great. He was, otherworldly. I don't think they're going to get the 2 seed, especially if Buffalo beats Kansas City, which they will. There's a look-ahead line. Buffalo, I think, is +1. It's going to be right around +1 or -1, whatever. But I think the Bills are going to win that game. I'm looking a little bit ahead, but if they do, now even though Baltimore has the head-to-head against Buffalo, they really can't slip up at all.
Right.
But you're starting to see like a little separation. I don't even think Cincinnati's done for the playoff, even though they got robbed last night. We could bring it up. Everyone's bringing it up. For good reason, but when you're doing replay, shouldn't you be able to look at that? I mean, now you're going one step further, but well, then they can call holding. But can you just keep it to something egregious, like what happened to Darnold against the Rams, where
Face
his
mask.
head was ripped off, and then this was pretty obvious. If that's Mahomes, there's
Of
like
course he's
50
getting the call.
flags. Yeah, it's just
But it, but it,
it's just
but you know
hat.
what? It's every week. You mentioned Mahomes. Kansas City runs that stupid rub route, the same thing that happened to the Giants, and they got Slayton on it. So it's like they pick and choose. If you're going to defer to New York, defer to New York. What's the point of going to New York if it's not a reviewable play? Or, well, you're not going to not throw. Like if I don't throw the flag, I'm not going to review it to throw the flag. They'll never do that, but they'll pick up the flag, but they do it at their discretion. But last night was just another example of, again, tight ends getting mauled, receivers are getting mauled. It just so happens on the 2 point play, and
They
it,
got to call the play that they had because
I agree.
I still have it stuck in my teeth when Brady's last year in New England when they were at Kansas City in the AFC Finals and it was a third down play and they grazed they so ever so beautifully grazed his helmet and they gave him the first down and they went down and scored and I believe they go into overtime where they won and it's like wow, they're going to call that that makes you want them to call. Okay, you don't have to call. You're going to miss some of them, but you can't miss the last play of the game. This isn't a Hail Mary, Rich. It's an obvious call, and it really does change
Of course
the
it does.
complete landscape of the AFC. And of course, I have a horse in this. It would improve my MVP odds, I think, if the more losses the Ravens get.
Of course, it
Uh,
only strengthens your case for Goff.
Yeah, but it is what it is. Hopefully, you hope these things even out. If we're talking a month from now and the Ravens get hosed on some weird call, in Houston, I keep bringing Houston up because I have a feeling that might end up being a bigger game than we may think, for at least for seedings and positioning and whatnot.
And by the way,
But
Houston's they're hosting the Lions. Detroit's laying 4 in that game. That's a nice matchup this weekend.
Yeah, it opened 3.5. It kind of hung around 3.5. It may have opened 3. I missed the exact number. I wasn't really looking at that. I don't like these situations of you have 2 road games and one of them is divisional and you win and then you play on the road against the out of division, out of conference.
Yeah,
If you remember last year, Earl was earlier in the year, but Detroit got stuck in that. Similarly, they won the first game, and then the second game was at Baltimore, and you remember you could tell they kind of
that's the game they
they
got
didn't.
hammered in.
Yeah, I don't want to say they gave up, but they pumped the brakes in the second half because if you're gonna the season's long, if you're gonna lose a game, you want to lose it out of conference
Sure.
and out
Right.
of your division.
Right. Right.
And it's a lot scheduling. And I think you wouldn't, you may not say as a coach, but you may just say, hey, listen, this is what we're going to do. And,
Write it off.
we get
Yep.
down 4 touchdowns. It's not live or die. Not every, it's a scheduling thing. It's just
Right.
not live or die. Now, Detroit has a little bit something more to play for a little bit later in the year than we were because the whole division is good except for now the Bears. I mean, the Bears have fallen off. I knew one of them would fall off. I didn't know which one it was going to be. I
I was
actually thought it
never a
was going to
believer
be
in the
Green Bay.
Bears. So
I thought it was going to be Green Bay only because I didn't think Love was healthy, and I saw what a full strength Eagles did to them. Even though I know it was the first game of the year and it was on a weird field, but still, it turned out it's the Bears and. So, Detroit wants to worry about
yep.
Green Bay, even though they're going to, they have the head-to-head. They're going to get them at home, and now they have obviously they have the head-to-head against the Vikings, so they're in the driver's seat. But you don't want to give anything away, and the fact that this line hasn't gone anywhere has a lot to do with Houston's injuries and stuff. They're not the same team they were even a month ago.
Wide receiver.
And you know what's odd is I really don't have opinion on that game one way or the other. I kind of looked at it and I just said, there was far more interesting slop for me to look at, and uh, one of them is the Tennessee Chargers game. Uh, this is a game where,
One of the lowest totals of the weekend.
and I don't think I had somewhere. I don't think the Chargers have played.
Your Chargers bit me in the ass 2 weeks ago
Oh
against
yeah,
the Saints.
with the bad Saints, I did
Yeah.
like it. I thought it was too many points for a team that doesn't score that well. But then I kind of out handicapped myself as I forgot that uh, the Saints are awful.
You like the Chargers?
But we were in that game for a little while.
We were. You
Until
like the Chargers laying 7.5?
no, I don't. I like Tennessee. I bet
Wow.
Tennessee already. I got Tennessee plus 7.5.
I can't do it. I can't.
I have plus 7.5, and it now that 7.5 is juiced a little bit. I think this is really a play. What the Saints did not have is the Tennessee as a defense, and it's actually a little bit underrated. I know you can look good against New England, but I think it's a little bit or undervalued because of how they lost. Yeah, they stink, but the Chargers, they just don't, they don't score enough to be laying 7 anywhere. And that's kind of historically,
That's a fair point, but then I would have.
I won a lot of games like that. If you don't have a team that's like a pinball machine or even average or below average in scoring, they have a good defense too. Tennessee's actually a little bit better.
Yeah.
They
gave up 34 and 52 against the Bills in Detroit.
Yeah, they did.
And,
but
the Muscles quarterback is getting the nod, I think, this weekend. So
what's funny is they were 10-0 in the Bills game, and they were really playing, decently, and then, then they kind of everything flew off for them. I bet Tennessee. I also bet I had a small. As soon as the Jacksonville game went to 7.5, with the Lawrence injury information, and I guess they're going to play Mac Jones.
Yes,
it got 7.5 for I don't even know how long, but I bet it at 7.5 for a little bit. It's going to come down. I think it was 7 a couple hours ago. I wouldn't be surprised if it levels at 6.5 or 6. This game opened. If Lawrence played, it was 4.
Right.
So yeah, Lawrence is worth that many points, but you're going over really in modern times now kind of two semi-key numbers. You're going over a 6 and a 7, and it's just dangerous when you start laying that as a team, on the road. Now, I lay myself out there, look pretty stupid, but you start getting later in the year, I'll take these teams getting a touchdown or more at home. I think if I'm not, I had in my notes earlier, I don't know where I did with the one thing. I think every game Jacksonville's lost has been 1 score except for the Bills game. And that came out kind of again, and the Bills just killed them that prime time game. Now that doesn't mean much for this, especially if Lawrence don't play. But have you watched somehow Lawrence's passes and how he's played? He's either been hurt for a while or he's fallen backwards. So maybe if you change the offense to a little bit, maybe they play a little more conservative. And
a good point, by the way. They lost by 37 to Buffalo, but other than that, 5 to Cleveland, 4 to Houston. They did get waxed by the Bears. That was a bad loss. That was 35 to 6.
Oh, that was the.
Then they lost. You said they were going to keep it close against Philly. You text me and you said watch them lose by 7 or 8, and then they lost by 3 against Green Bay. So they're playing competitive. But man, I'll tell you, you go from Trevor Lawrence, who hasn't played well this year, to Mac Jones.
That's what I mean. Is he really worth
drop off?
Now every point's not worth the same amount. Like when you say, if somebody says, Trevor Lawrence is worth 5 points, which 5? Because if you're going from 2 to 5, that's not the same thing as going from 8 to 11 or 12. So, he's a solid. They went from 4 to 7.5, and now there's been some buyback, and I'm one of the people who bought it back. So, when I bought it back as soon as it hit that threshold, I bought Jacksonville. I thought they would play well against Green Bay. Again, it's tough unless you got to be a really, really, really good team to start laying 3.5, 4.5, which is what Green Bay did. Now they almost got there, but it didn't matter. Jacksonville, I think I was getting more than 3. I think it was a
Yeah,
solid bet.
especially as you mentioned, like
I
on the
think this will
road.
be okay too.
Yeah,
This will be okay.
yeah.
It's a little bit less than what I played Tennessee for. So
What are your?
I know.
I was just going to ask
Yeah.
you, what are your thoughts? I don't know if you have this game on your board. I think you do. Atlanta and the Saints.
No, I actually don't.
Really, I'm a little surprised by that because I know you're not high on the Saints, but we mentioned, on the road, 3, 4, 4, 4.5. The Falcons are laying 3.5 on the road against a team that's
Yeah,
just
but
fired their head coach and has dropped 7 straight.
this line was, I believe there was a 4.5 early. Uh, if I would make a case for the Saints, I wouldn't play the game. I don't love Atlanta overall as a team. I mean, Cousins looks great against Bulls' defense, but they're okay. It's amazing how one Saquon Barkley catch, how much that would have changed the entire NFC. One extra loss for Atlanta might end up being a bigger deal. One extra win for the Eagles might have had people not screaming about everything that Sirianni does. At this point, if he goes to the Wawa and he can't decide what size milk he gets, I get the feeling that people are going to start heckling him. I know you're not a big
Hey, listen,
Sirianni
I
fan,
was going to be
so I'm going to
he's 16
respectfully
ounce or a
say,
quart, right? I mean, he's bad with measurements. He's bad with numbers, obviously.
well, I had. Well, you see, I got in it with Seth Joyner online a little bit, and you see his answer was, I don't want to call him out anymore because his reply basically tells you what he thinks about math or analytics, and it's just a lot of the ex-players just don't get it.
But let me
They're
ask you
never
a
going to get it.
question. I know you and I differ on this to some extent. I believe there's always a time and place, but like perfect example. In the Giants game, when they're trailing, you're down 14. I don't believe you start going for 2 because now you're chasing. That's the problem I have. Okay, you're chasing. So another example, if you look at Seattle and the Rams, so then you can make a case. Why are you going on 4th down when the Rams, their last 5 possessions was a block punt and then 4 straight punts? And then you look at the Eagles game. If you're telling me that's just who he is, Rich, he's always going to be like that, then I'll try to accept it. But in that game, I didn't understand why you keep going for 2 and then you missed twice and you also left 6 points off the board by not electing to kick the field goals. And then you do try to go for a long field goal and you miss it. Like, I think there's a time and a place for the analytics in football. And sometimes these coaches outthink themselves.
So here's the problem. The whole idea of getting there's different parts of analytics. They're used all these teams that have hired analytic people.
Yeah.
Have hired math people from statistics departments, modeling. A lot of it is player evaluation. That's a piece that a lot of people aren't really taking into account. It's not just in game. They have certain criteria they're looking for, and they're starting to fit that. You can go back. It also applies to baseball all the way back to Theo Epstein and Billy Bean and what they started to look at in certain players. That they're doing that in the NFL as well. But then the other part of analytics and the part that they think they could even more easily correct was in-game decisions. It's just because it goes back to where the humans in general are risk averse. The studies are out there for anybody to Google it and read about how risk averse humans in general are. And there was like a running joke for, people that if humans are, this much risk averse. Head coaches in the NFL are like this much risk averse. They want to keep their jobs. Think about Justin Sirianni's situation. You kick field goals, you can blame your kicker. Well, that's just what happened. And it alleviates you. It pushes the blame onto somebody else. It's kind of a weaselly way to get around stuff. And say, well, why did you try the four? Dan Campbell could have did it in the NFC Finals. Just like
good play design, good play call.
Because yeah, people thought that kick was automatic. It's a 49-yard.
Yeah, but
it's not automatic. Here's my thing. I'm not going to say that Campbell that it wasn't right to attempt the field.
Wrong personnel. Wrong personnel.
But I'm saying it's 50-50. If they get the first down, nobody said, earlier in the early game, Kansas City got stopped in the first drive. It was 4th and 4, and they go for it. Now, if they don't get it, it's the first quarter. Maybe you should go. Well, wait a minute. Every time Sirianni does it, well, you can't do it. Here's the problem with being this haphazard thing. Each situation is different than the other. So you take it on each situation. Now, if it turns out to be you get 4 goes in a row, that's just the way it is. I'll give you an analogy. Probably 8-9 years ago, I found something in NBA sides for a certain thing with road teams that I was working out, and whatever I was doing kept falling on the Wizards. It just, if it was certain threshold. So, the Wizards were this kind of, they weren't scoring a lot, but they actually played a little bit okay, but they were getting like 11 points and 9 points and 14 points. So a couple games out of getting 14, they lost by 16 or 17. So I lost like 2 or 3 of the games, a couple at home, there was a couple on the road. And I'm like, okay, and then here it is, the Wizards again. Now, a cynic could be like, hey, you're chasing the Wizards. Like, no, I'm not. This is just where my numbers are taking me. And sure enough, the Wizards end up going like, 9-2 on the road that likes 11 games or something. And if you just played it and just said, you know what, I'm going to, like a religion, I'm going to believe it. And my return, my ROI was pretty good just with the Wizards. So I think they have to be looking at it the same way. I couldn't convey to Seth Joyner, and I couldn't convey to I just had this kind of rational
because they're players. They're
going from 16 to 18 points. Nobody could wrap their head around it. But that's not that's not the reason why I went for it. He went for it because they're at the 1. When Jackson got a penalty, he got the 1. Now, if they were to give you 2-point conversion attempt at the 1 every time, you should never kick ever. You should it's me, even by any.
You treat it as a 4th down play, 4th and 1. You treat it as a 4th and 1. I got you. 4th and goal. Pardon me.
4th and 1 is a big difference in 4th and 5.
Yeah.
And so.
But doesn't that change your play calling?
I don't care when it is. I don't care if it's in B. And then look back to people forget this. They get all over. Go back to the Charger Jacksonville game. And I encourage people to go back and look at the play-by-play or watch the last, when Joey Bosa threw his helmet twice and they gave a double penalty and they let Peterson in the middle of the comeback. They move the ball to the 1. Now, he doesn't get it. Peterson doesn't get it. They're down 4. They got to score a touchdown. Everybody would have killed him. Everybody would have killed him. He gets it. Lawrence puts the ball over. He makes it a 2-point game. And they win the game. And now they only needed a field goal. Peterson was trying to win the game. It was just a smart thing to do. But I remember reading afterwards, somebody said, there's nobody in the league who would have done that. Belichick wouldn't have did it. That's how ballsy it was. And I said, well, he's really trying to. If more coaches thought, I'm going to get fired. I'm not Bill Belichick. I ain't Chuck Noll.
Then I'm going to go out my way.
Forever. I have a finite amount. My contract is for 4 years. I'm trying to win it. All right, well, how do you maximize? Now, some of these guys might be thinking, well, I want to make sure I get another job. So if I need to throw my kicker under the bus and I lose by field goal, the Marty Schottenheimer thing.
Yeah, but doing that ahead is one thing. Doing that ahead is one thing. When you're behind like Dable is 14 points and all of a sudden you're chasing points. So now you don't get the 2, you don't have 8, you're sitting at 6. You got to go for 2 again. That fails you. Now it's a 3 possession game or 2
You
plus.
know, if it was up to me, I'm so on the other fringe. I would, if I had Mahomes or if I had like Roethlisberger. Remember, it was one game Tomlin went for 2 like 7 times or something because they were chasing points. But I don't mind chasing points. To me, I'm trying to maximize the point. I think if I work on this, if I work on 2 down plays, you're really not working on them. If I have Josh Allen, if I have a healthy Mahomes, if I have
That's
Jalen
your whole
Hurts, if I,
point. That's your whole argument.
I,
Talent.
I, I would go for 2 a lot
If
more.
you scratch and claw and you try to get every friggin' yard with an offense like the Giants, it's deflating if you're constantly going for 2 and you're chasing points because you don't even get in the end zone, the red zone, the green zone, as Coughlin used to say. It's
Well, by that point, you got nothing to lose. Dable's got
uh,
nothing to lose. That's another thing about Dable. Dable's not going anywhere.
I,
Daniel Jones,
I
listen,
don't know about that just
Daniel
yet.
Jones isn't his quarterback. He didn't pick Daniel Jones. Dable isn't going anywhere. It doesn't matter if they lose to the Panthers this week, which I
Uh,
think they may
oh,
because
oh.
it's the other guy's quarterback.
Yeah, man,
Dable.
you got to be able, if the Giants have any slice ounce of dignity and pride, you have to, you've got to wax that team 28-10. You have to, because
Which they may.
all bets are off. If they lose that game, all bets are off for the head coach and GM. And you already know at 2-8 with a loss, the quarterback's bench because they have to put
I'm
him
going
in
to give you a
bubble wrap.
prediction right now. Doesn't matter how many games they lose, Dable's not getting fired.
You might be right.
Because he has an out. It's not his, those guys, they didn't take, they
Well,
were
no,
almost
especially
forced.
if they bench Jones and they go to Lock or Cutlets. You're right.
Well, you
That's
know
a
what I would do? I would just run quarterback draws on 2-point conversions for Jones until he got hurt. That's
You got
terrible
to
to
pay
say.
him.
But listen, he's a big guy. Use him for what he's
That's
good.
the reason they're going to bench him. They don't want an injury settlement. If he can't pass a physical, they're on the hook. Jones is
That's
done
true.
after.
Well, they got Jones cheap, inexpensive, and they were kind of stuck with him. And I think it's going to save Dable because that wasn't his guy. It wasn't his choice. It wasn't this administration's choice. But listen, all will be right in the world if they win 16-13 because I made a bet on Carolina when I got to 6.5. So I have a small bet on Carolina. More slop.
And yeah, you touched
Give
the
me a
under
reason
as
to
well.
get up early on Sunday to what's it in Munich?
So you like Philly. You think Philly's going to railroad Dallas?
Yeah, and if I normally don't like, well, I lie. If I have a team who can score and it is good, above average, I don't mind laying. I wouldn't mind using this as a teaser leg. Let them laying 1.5 on the road. I usually don't like that unless it's like an elite team. But I consider the Eagles elite. And, with a full Eagles with a full team, AJ Brown, everybody healthy. They're undefeated. I know that hasn't. It's not a ridiculously hard schedule so far. Again, I'll go back to the Barkley catch, which I thought was the right call. He catches the ball, the game's over.
Early in the season.
They're 7-1. It's going to turn out. I don't think that's going to come down because I think there's a good shot that they might really put it on to Dallas.
I think so
13
too.
piece. To be on the safe side, if anybody's in love, people like are in love with teasers, you could. I think Dallas would definitely be. Eagles would definitely be a good one. I wouldn't have a problem laying a 7.5. I'd be a little bit worse, but let's put it this way: if you're ever going to lay more than a touchdown, one team against the other, you really kind of want this kind of matchup. A defense is terrible, and an offense that can score a lot.
Yeah.
When even with Goddard's going to play this week. They're going to. It's Dallas. If they get a chance to put it on Dallas,
They're going to put them on them. Yeah.
Like a 55,
yeah, because they had
17 piece. Remember what Dallas did to the Giants a couple years ago when they had Tommy, what's the name in there? Yeah. So listen, this is in division. Yeah. There's no friends in division.
Wiping.
And Sirianni's kind of aggravated now. Everybody, I think he wants to take take it out on somebody. I think they might run some trick plays. But listen, just like Dan Campbell, I think this is the time to really get on Jerry Jones. If you got a chance. His team's his team's down. It's the Dallas Cowboys.
Stop
They
them.
got a lot of primetime games, and I think people are just going to put it to them.
Give me a one or two games you also like. I mean, I'm looking at my board. I love Arizona at home. You know,
A lot of people do. The Jets are getting overvalued
I
a
think
little
so.
bit.
I think it's spur of the
I like
moment, little recency bias.
it's the Jets every week. It's like what the heck, Jets,
What
Jets,
team
Jets
can?
finally get a winning cover at home against Houston. The Texans do get there if you play the teaser early. You get plus 8.5. You squeeze in, but you know Jets are fooling people a little bit. Here's what's interesting is that their defense is like, everybody thought their defense was going to be great. This total is like 46 and a
Yep,
half. I
yep.
think I think a game's going to go over. But I have to admit, I like the Jets in the game here. I just think it's the kind of game that they're going to win.
You like them on
They
Thursday night
can win.
too. You like them
They
Thursday night
can
outright
win.
against the Texans.
Uh,
Trying to think.
I just the way like Arizona is playing a lot better.
3 out of 4.
Uh,
Yeah.
I didn't touch the game. I put a little bit on the over, but I would not be surprised if the Jets somehow squeeze out a game that kind of looks like the Detroit game. Detroit won by a touchdown. They looked like they were going to blow the doors off them. Everything kind of got a little bit tight in the second half, and they won by 7. I won't be surprised if either team wins by
Okay.
by a touchdown. So I think it'll be close. But if you don't have a rock solid defense. Jets have a little bit more weapons now. I can see a reason for playing the Jets. I didn't play the game. The game I played uh, the most on is, and I played it as soon as I got an 8.5.
It's
That's
first.
when it
Oh,
opened.
8.5.
It
Okay.
actually opened 9.5. So I got a 9. I didn't get a 9. I got a 9. I got an 8.5. Got an 8.5. I think even 8 is good.
Chiefs
It's Denver.
Broncos.
Yeah, I got Denver, and I grabbed some money line Denver early. You can laugh now if you want. I had Denver. I think Denver can win the game. I think as the season goes on, and well, let me put it this way. I have to give as much as I criticize Sean Payton in the past. It's never been for his ability as a head coach. It's been for his the bounty and kind of being a whiny guy but he can coach, and I think he's smart enough to. I think he was able to look. Says, listen, we have at Baltimore, at Kansas City. Now, what game's more important to you?
Kansas
I know they
City.
prepare. You'd
Division.
like to think that they prepare equally. They'll get the defensive assistants in. All right, we're going to do this. In case we're going to do this, but I think this was the more important game, and I think they've have been. Now it's tough to completely strategize against Mahomes, but I think they have the defense that can make this game close. And Kansas City's kind of playing with fire a little bit with some of these close games. They teetered around with Tampa Bay, a game that we had, a game that I had, and then boom, boom, he goes down the field, he gets 2 touchdowns, and nothing for nothing. If Bowles plays the clock correctly,
Right.
you can't call timeout there. You run it all the way down to about, I'm going to say 30 seconds, 25 seconds, and you have first and goal, and you're going to get in. You have 1 timeout. If you want to run the ball somewhere in there, you want a couple throws in there, and then you go for 2, because if you get it, Mahomes is going to have less than 20 seconds. And I think that's what should have happened. The reality is that didn't happen. Kansas City won the game, but they've been really, teetering on that kind of brink. I think a little bit. And who better to beat them than a team in their own division? And correct me if I'm wrong. Did they not lose at Denver last year?
Kansas City
It was
did.
yeah, it was at Denver. I get confused sometimes if they were home or away, but I know they lost at home to the Raiders. That was over the holidays, but they lost. and that game wasn't even close. So I wouldn't be surprised if I see something, similar. Let's put it this way: they're not going 17-0.
No.
Yeah, they're going to lose to the Bills. Yeah, they might lose one other game. It could be this game. And they played, they're undefeated this late in the year. I could see them losing back-to-back games, and it won't really tarnish anything for Kansas City, but it'll mean a lot to Denver, and then of course it'll mean a lot to me because I bet. So
Let me remind everyone, Football Friday edition of Back Your Play with Q. Rich Quinones here. We are powered by our wonderful friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clements Bridge Road in Deptford, New Jersey, open 7 days a week. Check them out online, playitagainsports.com/. You can put in the Deptford location. And also, their newest store will give you a little more information as they get closer to their grand opening in Mount Laurel, 8111 Route 38, Suite 12, Mount Laurel, New Jersey. They are hiring, so the same premise idea, go online, put in Mount Laurel location, looking for sports fans, hardworking fans, dedicated, get some bodies in there with their new launch second store in Mount Laurel. All right, a couple minutes to play with. So one or two more games that you've on the big board, on props big board that
well, New England was 6.5. Or I think the Bears are a mess, and I took New England also.
how about my command skins?
I actually like Pittsburgh in the game. It's a game that I'm not going to take. Uh, I could see this being a tougher game for Jaden Daniels
Defensively, yeah,
than
Pittsburgh.
he's seen before. And the market kind of relatively agrees with
Yep,
me. I think
yep.
this is a big game across the board for Russell Wilson. It's a big game for Pittsburgh, and
I think if
I
Washington wins this game, you really say now they are legit right now, right? I mean, they made the trade for Humphreys. He's not going to play. He's banged up with the hamstring. But man, they get an 8-2. My goodness.
and then it makes next Thursday's game,
There
gigantic
you go.
with the Eagles. But I do think I think the Steelers are going to win the game, and then the Eagles game is back down to 7. Somebody, smart people, grab the 7.5 with Dallas. I don't think it's gonna be that smart, but just FYI. And I did bet New England. New England's probably going to hover. I think it'll actually it could even go to 5.5, 5 or 5.5, which is kind of a dead number. I don't think 6. I think 6 is a good number. If you get 6.5, it's good. You can search it out for good money. I think New England will win the game. I think a case can be made that if the Bears lose this game, they might not win again. As crazy as that is, I think they could go right in the tank. They, what you don't want to happen is your offense is kind of like yes, your defense is kind of holding together, and then you start losing late in the year, start getting these weird injuries, and then all of a
I got their
sudden,
schedule, and you might be right. So right now, listen, they were 4-2, right? They were 1-2 at one point, won 3 straight, come back down to earth. That Hail Mary shook them. That's like when Elliott kicked the field goal against the Giants. It shook them. It shook them. They're done. But they've got New England, as you mentioned. So let's just say they lose that game. Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, San Francisco, Minnesota, Detroit, Seattle, Green Bay. You're right. They might not win another frigging game.
yeah, their in season total was like 7.5 juiced or something, and after it was 9.5, preseason. Uh, it I think it has value. I do think that I don't think they're going to cover the game at all.
You
And
play
there's
New England money line?
yeah, I think if you can get 240 or higher, I think it's decent, but
It's worth it.
it's worth it. I'd have to think about how much I'd want to risk, but I do like New England as a play. I have it. I played it in the Super Contest. We'll see what happens. The other game I like, and a lot of people are against me, is I like Miami to beat the Rams on Monday night. Eh, I'm going to go down with the ship. I have a lot of unders with the Rams. I know they got everybody back healthy, but I have Cooper Kupp under in touchdowns, under in yards, Stafford under in yards. I'm going to lose to Stafford, maybe. I'm going to probably win the Cooper Kupp. I have preseason. I have Rams under. Uh, I just, for multiple reasons that, we have the time. We can go into it next week. It scared me a little bit when everybody came back healthy and they looked so good. Stafford is great, but I just think they're too uneven. McVay's track record is great. I mean, the guy's, what's he, 21 years old? He's in the Super Bowl twice already. He's won one, and I get it. I still don't like what he does in game. I think he punts when I think he blew the Lions game by not going for it. But I think he takes too many field goals. I think that ends up hurting you. You know why? He could come to Philly. People would love him because he'd punt and kick all the time or make attempts, and that would be that. But I bet Miami. I have Miami and a bunch of teasers as well. But I think they can win the game. And that's it. That's really all I played. I think this is going to get more interest. Obviously, it's going to get more interesting as it goes on. Things get tightened up. But there's a lot of lousy teams. I think it's better. I like that more for betting purposes when you got a lot of slop. I used to be, when I was younger, I was king of the slop because I get, sloppy team versus sloppy team. And you had one team getting four and that team would win. The other team getting four would win. Like, how the hell did you know? So, well, I'm not as sloppy as the four. So, a lot of that goes on in the NFL. You're starting to get interesting now. This week was the first polling for college football, which I pay attention a little bit to it. They always get it wrong. I think in the beginning, they're overvaluing Miami and they're undervaluing, Georgia and but it'll all shake out. I think it'll be really interesting in the next 2 weeks when things look a little bit cleaner, I'd say, But you're gonna have a bunch of teams beating other teams. If you took a look in college, you take a look at Georgia's schedule. I mean, it's just brutal. Georgia's schedule is brutal, and I have them +6 on. I mean, it went up to like 650 or something if they lost to Alabama to win the whole thing. And as good as Georgia is, they could lose this week. It's just because Ole Miss is good and
you got four undefeated teams. You got four undefeated teams. You got quack, 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 right? You got Miami, you got BYU, and you got Indiana.
I have Georgia Tech this week as a game. I have them +11. I think it's too many points. I think at some point, I think Miami's good. I don't think they're great, and they definitely are not in the top four as the early rankings have them. The Penn State game was disappointing.
7-1. This guy can't beat anyone.
Yeah, and I had Penn State, and I had the 3.5, and I just was looking so good. It serves me right for playing Frankel, but I was right there. Forget not getting in the end zone. You have them on the one. You can't let them get whatever first downs, and they get the midfield and game's over. So for as good as that defense is, they came up short when they needed them. But Penn State's going to be in this playoff, and they're going to end up matched up against somebody like Tennessee or something. I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves. But I did play for people that are looking for plays. I did play Georgia Tech. I did play. If you want a slop game, I played New Mexico, which is I think it's tomorrow, or is it tonight? I don't know. I played it so early in the week. I got a 3.5, and I played Utah. I got 3.5 early in the week. It went to 2.5. BYU at Utah. Utah's not what they were. They're only 4-4. Their defense is still decent, but they've underachieved. And BYU's passed every test. They won in Central Florida. But here's I don't know if I'm doing it wrong or looking at it wrong, but I think BYU can lose this game and still win their conference. So if that's the case, I mean, I have to look at it a little bit. If they're losing second, I might sit everybody if I was the coach. Why do I care about? Well, I care about beating Utah if I make it to the conference championship game, because if they win and go undefeated,
right,
you get to the conference championship game, lose, they're out.
Yeah.
They're not going anywhere. So who cares about this game? So you're going to get a lot of this until they can add more teams or figure out how to do. What's really shining a light is Army's undefeated,
Yep.
and they're going to have to play the Army Navy game,
And I
and
failed to
then
mention Army. Yep.
yeah, remember we talked this a few weeks ago. Now I don't think Army's going to make the tournament, but they're going to be in this weird thing where they're going to play Army Navy and then play the conference champion. If it was up to me, I would have got rid of the conference championship games. But it's a gold mine for the leagues. But you don't need it; it screws things up. You have a 3-loss SEC team. Maybe make to the tournament. We'll talk about more next week when things get
Now,
clear.
the big question I have to ask you as we close it out, did you put any coin in a pocket on Tuesday night?
Oh yeah, well, I 2020, I had a weird situation where I had some futures on Trump, and then as you got closer to actually the Tuesday night, the lines went really goofy. I mean, it went like 10-1 Trump, and then even money. It was like so you could literally just arb, even if it was just a few $100, you were getting like plus 250
Yeah.
on Biden, and then plus 250 on Trump. Like it was really bizarre. And I got to the point where I thought Trump would win. I thought he had some value, and it turned into I don't even care. Biden's plus 310. What the hell is this? And so I still lost a little bit, but I paid a little bit more attention this time as far as like the smaller, like the states and whatnot, and especially Pennsylvania, because I
Right.
think I know Pennsylvania maybe better than anybody who follows this. I really dug deep into PA and the elections and all. And I figure if I could get Trump minus 140 or less or close to even, PA would be a good reason to bet PA, even though almost everybody else had it even. I just didn't see it that way, and I bet a little bit. And then it went to 180, and I said, yeah, I trade different sites, and then Monday morning it was even. PA was like it was minus. She was a favorite, so he was minus 105. So I played PA a little bit more. Then I played a little bit more. Then I played a little bit more, and then I played. Then I said, well, let me just play more on Trump. And I completely forgot. I had a plus 250 on Trump. I don't even know when I bet it. I don't know when that was. Couldn't have been after I think it was last year or something, because that one. And then I did buy back some Harris, and I did lose a little bit on the popular vote. I bet Harris on the popular vote, which we're also doing really good. And then I got like plus 2 something for her to win Nevada. And did they even count Nevada? I don't even know. I think it's going to go to Trump. I just looked at it. It was just good. It was just decent
No,
numbers.
that's awesome.
And I think there's a lot of bias in this. Obviously, there's a lot of bias. More than people with their favorite team. It's just like it only happens every 4 years. People are so invested in it. I think if you could step back and be like, hey, what's the best price here? I'll give you a boxing example because you're such a boxing guy. When Felix Trinidad fought Bernard Hopkins, obviously Hopkins is a Philly guy. It was a big deal. I mean, for people who
Of
don't follow
course.
boxing, they don't realize how much of a big deal that was. And Trinidad had never really been beaten, and he was a small favorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but boxing, on certain count, unless you're in Vegas or physically at a casino, they don't put the boxing lines out early.
And you
Some
don't
of the
make a lot
credit
of money
accounts,
on the title fights,
yeah, they'll put the
unless you get
credit
the door.
accounts. Yeah, the PPHs might put it out a week ahead
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
such an event, and the limits are low or whatever. But so what ended up happening is the day you get it, the day of. I had Hopkins plus 120, and I rooted. I can't tell you how much I was rooting for Trinidad. Like my palms were sweating. It was ridiculous. I just wanted him to win so badly, and you should never bet when you're in that. I just wanted it. I was like, oh god. I'm like, I can't believe I had to take Hopkins plus 120. So I was taking, and then a couple hours before fight time, it flipped, and now Trinidad was like plus 110. So I was like, oh, that's not good. But I was playing Hopkins plus 110. So I had it where it didn't matter who won. I was going to make something, but that way I could root for Trinidad. And then when the sad result of his dad running in the ring of city, and everybody just thought I lost because I was like, oh God, and I went back and totaled it up. I said, hey, it was smart. I think people need to take that attitude toward uh, these kind of these elections. I mean, the Harris people were so invested in it. If you gave them plus 500 on Trump, they might not have taken it, and
Right.
that's where you can where you can go wrong. I think if you got to separate yourself. I was always a big fan. Everybody that's involved in sports were big fans. Yeah, I'm not the kind of fan I was. I don't live and die with the teams. That's maybe one of the things that when you bet on sports, it kind of hurts you a little bit. But I have a team to root for
There you go.
because they've never made the Super Bowl, which is sad. They're one of the original teams.
That's right.
They're having the best year since 1957, I think. And it's somebody you can get. I like Dan Campbell.
And you got
I
some
love it
shekels on
that,
golf.
and he's a fourth down guy.
There you
If
go.
I was on his staff, I'd be let's go. And I have Goff. And Goff, look, think about the Goff trade real quick. I mean, let's say Detroit goes and wins the Super Bowl. When's the last time a trade in any sport where both guys got
But
top guys
yeah,
got
it's a
traded,
great
and
point.
both teams made it
Yep.
and won.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a good story, and I'm going to stick with it until somebody
There you
tells
go.
me
Look at
no.
that. He's been on fire. He's calling presidential elections. He's calling these games. He's all over the place. And of course, his appearance from our good friends over at Play It Again Sports. Don't forget to listen during the week on the drive with Q and also BYP for all the updates with the new store location in Mount Laurel. But don't forget the Deptford 11450 Clemens Bridge Road. They're open 7 days a week. Check them out online. You can walk right in, do your in-store shopping. PlayItAgainSports.com/Deptford, the official sponsor of BYP. And of course, the props appearance. Give him a follow on X as well at Professor Shine. Appreciate you, my friend. Good luck this weekend.
All right, you too.